How is a frog different from a toad?
Frogs and toads have many features in common, but there are a couple ways to tell them apart. In general, frogs spend more time in the water, while toads spend more time exploring land. Frogs have smooth, moist skin, while toad's skin is generally bumpy. Toads get around by walking and hopping, while frogs, which generally have longer legs, do more leaping. Frogs' feet are more fully webbed than toads, and their legs are usually longer. Frogs and toads make up the order Anura, and within that order there are almost 25 families of frogs. The toads in the family Buphonidae are called true toads, while the frogs in the family Ranidae are called true frogs. The hundreds of other types of anurans in the remaining families are commonly described as frogs if they resemble the Ranidae and toads if they resemble Buphonidae. This rather unscientific method of describing these animals sometimes means that one animal from a particular family is called a toad while a close relative from the same family is called a frog. Sometimes, since there is no commonly used word that refers to frogs and toads together, scientists will simply use the word frog to cover both types of animals. There are about 3,800 species of frogs and toads, and they come in many different shapes, sizes, and colors. The smallest, a Brazilian frog, measures no more than 39 inches, around 10 millimeters, in length. While the Goliath frog from West Africa is almost 12 inches, 30 centimeters, long.
What is spit?
Your mouth is kept moist and clean by a watery liquid called saliva, or spit, which is made by pairs of salivary glands located under your jaw, in front of your ears, and under your tongue. Saliva mixes with food as you chew, softening it so that it can be more easily swallowed. In addition, saliva starts the digestive process because it contains an enzyme or chemical that changes the starch in food into sugar. The production of saliva increases when food is in the mouth or even with the sight and smell of good food, hence the use of the word mouth-watering to describe delicious or fragrant meals.
Why do I sweat when I'm hot?
When you get hot, your body has a couple of ways to cool down. The blood vessels in your skin expand, allowing more blood to flow through them. The heat the blood carries then escapes through your skin. When you are hot, you also produce more sweat, or perspiration, fluid made in sweat glands, millions of them, that cover your body, located deep in your skin. Sweat carries body heat to the surface of your skin through pores, or tiny holes, where the moisture evaporates into the air and cools you off. When you sweat faster than it can evaporate, you can get pretty soggy. It is important to remember to drink plenty of water when you are doing a lot of sweating so that you don't dehydrate, or lose bodily fluids. About 62% of a person's body weight is water. A lot of fluid is necessary to keep body processes running smoothly. Under extremely hot conditions, a person can lose up to 20 quarts of perspiration a day, which can lead to serious health problems if those fluids aren't replaced. You've probably noticed that your body doesn't do much to cool you off on very humid, sticky days. Sweat needs to evaporate, or turn into water vapor, in order to make you feel cooler. But on humid days, the air has so much water vapor in it already that it can't hold any more. When the air is nearly saturated like that, the sweat on your skin cannot evaporate fast enough to give you any relief. Sweat will evaporate better off your skin if you wear cotton clothing, which lets your skin breathe, rather than synthetic fibers like nylon, spandex, or polyester.
How do whales and other mammals stay underwater so long?
All aquatic mammals, meaning those that live in water, have lungs and require air to breathe. Some, like dolphins, live close to the water's surface and come up for air around once or twice a minute. Other sea mammals find their food by diving deep into the ocean. So they must be able to hold their breath for longer periods of time. They can do this because they take in a great deal of air with each breath. Their lungs take up a larger percentage of their body than do human lungs. Their bodies can also hold onto the oxygen they breathe better than human bodies can. Oxygen is required in every part of the body, for every bodily function. But when marine mammals go down for a deep dive, their oxygen is only sent to the most important parts, the heart, brain, and muscles used for swimming. The rest of the body, the stomach, for example, must wait until the dive is finished to get its oxygen. Human beings can hold their breath underwater for an average of 1 minute. A hippopotamus can stay underwater for 15 minutes. The sperm whale and bottlenose whale can stay underwater the longest. Some have been recorded on dives that lasted nearly 2 hours.
Is the horned toad really a toad?
In spite of its name, the horned toad, also called horny toad, is not a toad, or even an amphibian. The horned toad is actually a lizard, and therefore a reptile, also known more accurately as the horned lizard. It lives in dry, sandy regions in western North America, where it burrows itself up to its head in sand. This animal has a very specialized diet, eating mostly ants, and unusual ways of defending itself from predators. The horned toad can puff itself up to a larger size by sucking in air. And in rare cases, the horned toad has been known to shoot blood out of its eyes to frighten attackers.
How do cat years compare with human years?
The formula to figure out the age of a cat in human years goes like this. At 1 year old, a cat has the equivalent of 20 human years, and each additional year counts as another 4. The average lifespan of a house cat is between 12 and 14 years, which equals between 64 and 72 human years.
What is an amphibian?
Amphibians are cold-blooded vertebrates that spend part of their lives in bodies of water or watery places, and part on land. The name comes from the Greek word amphibios, which means living a double life. This class includes frogs and toads, salamanders, and caecilians, which look like large earthworms. Amphibians start out as eggs that are usually laid and hatched in water or moist ground. And the early stage of most amphibians' lives are spent in the water. Baby amphibians, called larvae, don't resemble the adults at all. As they mature, they go through major changes, called a metamorphosis. Adult amphibians usually live on land, never straying far from the water and returning to it when it's time to breed. Frogs and toads, for example, emerge from their eggs as tadpoles, sometimes called pollywogs, little creatures with a rounded head and a tail. They have gills for breathing in water and cannot survive on land. Over time, the gills become air-breathing lungs, the tail disappears, and limbs develop. Adult frogs and toads may spend a good amount of time in and around water, but they need air in order to breathe. Not every amphibian follows the usual pattern of spending the larval stage in water and the adult stage on land. As with every part of the animal kingdom, there are some creatures that don't fit the mold. For instance, some tree frogs living in tropical regions never leave their leafy homes. Their eggs must be kept moist, however. So the female frogs lay them in the drops of water that gather on the tree's leaves after a rain. For the most part, amphibians are fairly small creatures, with most being only a few inches long. The smallest frog in the world is no bigger than a person's thumbnail. The largest amphibian is the Chinese giant salamander, which can be around 5 feet, 1.5 meters, long. Amphibians do not have scales, plates, or fur. Their skin is usually smooth, with some toads being notable exceptions, and moist, in addition to breathing through their lungs. Amphibians breathe through their skin, and that moistness is necessary for them to do so. To make sure their skin stays moist, amphibians secrete a fluid that spreads over their skin and locks in moisture.
What is a silo?
The tall, cylinder-shaped farm structures known as silos are used to store silage, which is animal feed. Silage is moist feed made from green crops that ferment when stored in an airtight place. This fermentation process preserves the feed, which is used along with or instead of hay, dried grasses. To feed livestock like horses, cattle, and sheep during the winter when they cannot feed in green pastures. Silage gives farm animals needed nutrients. Before farmers started to raise food crops to feed their livestock. During the 18th century, they had to kill most of their animals when winter approached. Because grass in pasture lands stopped growing and the creatures faced starvation. But herds of livestock could be kept year-round once farmers began to grow crops for winter feed. Root crops like turnips, as well as leafy crops, were sometimes used. Today, corn is the crop most often used for silage.
Why do we have hair?
Prehistoric human beings were covered with a coat of heavy hair that protected them from the cold and from other threats in the environment like attacking animals and rugged terrain. The fine hair that covers our bodies now is probably a remnant of our prehistoric days. Today we have less need for a thick coat of hair on our bodies, we wear clothes to keep warm. And few things in our world threaten to seriously damage our skin. Yet we still have heavy hair on certain areas of our bodies for protective purposes. Our eyelashes and eyebrows, for instance, keep dirt and sweat out of our eyes. And the hair on our heads helps to keep our brains warm in cold temperatures.
Why do people speak different languages?
While some animals have demonstrated the ability to communicate with other animals and with humans, people are the only creatures on Earth who communicate through language, which is a system of vocal symbols. Scientists don't know exactly when humans first spoke, though they know that it happened a very long time ago, in prehistoric times. Different languages arose when groups of people separated by things like deserts, mountains, or great oceans developed their own systems of communicating that reflected their unique ways of life. These new languages were passed on when children learned to speak the same way the people around them did. As groups of people spread out to settle different parts of the world, they took their languages with them. They began to pronounce some words differently as time passed and had to add words to describe the new things and situations they found in distant lands. Languages gradually changed from their parent languages, though they still shared some characteristics. Today, English and French are languages that seem very different from one another. But they came from the same parent language, Indo-European, a long time ago. All languages that share a parent language belong to the same family. There are 13 large language families in the world today, from which most languages have descended.
How did the planets get their names?
All the planets in our solar system, with the exception of Earth, are named after ancient Greek or Roman gods and goddesses. Gigantic Jupiter, for instance, is named fittingly after the Roman king of the gods. The ancient Greeks and Romans believed that their gods and goddesses lived in the heavens. Astronomers of long ago who thought that Earth was the center of the universe and that the planets and sun orbited around it decided to use the names of these mythical heavenly dwellers when they labeled new planets. Because our planet was not considered a part of the heavens, it was called Earth, which means of the ground.
How far can birds fly?
Some birds go very short distances in their migrations. The blue grouse, for example, lives in the mountains in North America and flies less than a mile down to lower, warmer altitudes for the winter months. That's one extreme. Another extreme are the long-distance flyers like the Arctic terns. These birds hold the distance record for flight. They've been known to fly from their summer home in the Arctic to a winter spot in the Antarctic, covering distances of around 10,000 miles, 16,100 kilometers. And in the spring they go back the other way. The long-tailed jaeger flies more than 5,000 miles. 8,050 kilometers, in each direction of its migratory flight. And even the tiny barn swallow has been known to cover 6,000 miles, 9,660 kilometers, round trip.
Why do giraffes have such long necks?
Giraffes, the tallest of all animals, have such long necks because they eat leaves from the tops of some very high trees, beyond the reach of other animals. Living in the grasslands of Africa, they feed chiefly on acacia and mimosa trees. Using their long tongues and strong lips to pull off the highest leaves. A baby giraffe is about 6 feet, 1.8 meters, tall at birth, and a full-grown male giraffe can reach a height of 18 feet. 5.4 meters, from his hooves to the top of his head, about as high as a 2-story house. A giraffe may have a neck that measures up to 7 feet, 2 meters, long. Still, giraffes have the same number of bones or vertebrae in their necks as we do. The giraffe's bones are just much longer. Giraffes also have very long legs, which contribute to their great height. While their long legs allow them to outrun most of their enemies, they also cause a problem. Giraffes must spread their legs wide apart in order to reach anything on the ground, like water or grass. The position is an awkward one and leaves them vulnerable to attacks from predators. But they can protect themselves with their large hooves. Kicking a beast even as powerful as a lion to death.
Which tree is the tallest?
Along the coast of Northern California and Southern Oregon, where the climate is cool and moist, live some of the largest and most ancient trees in the world. They are sequoia trees, commonly known as redwoods because of the color of their bark and wood. There are two kinds of these conifers, which have scale-like leaves. The giant redwood, Sequoia sempervirens, is the tallest tree on Earth. It can grow up to 385 feet, 117 meters, about as tall as a 37-story building. Its trunk can measure up to 25 feet, 7.6 meters, in diameter. Many are more than 2,000 years old. The other giant sequoia, Sequoiadendron giganteum, isn't quite as tall, but it is wider and heavier. It can grow up to 325 feet, 99 meters, and have a trunk with a diameter up to 30 feet, 9.1 meters. With the biggest of these trees weighing an estimated 2,500 tons. They are considered the largest living things in the world, even bigger than blue whales. They have also been around longer than giant redwoods, with many almost 4,000 years old. Because the wood of sequoias is strong, beautiful, and decay-resistant. Many of these rare and ancient trees have been cut down in past decades and used for building. Replacing such trees is difficult, as they can take up to 500 years to reach maturity. But now they are protected in some 30 national parks. If you go to the central west coast of the United States, you can visit these special forests. You may even be able to drive your car through tunnels that have been carved out of the tree's huge trunks.
What keeps the bones of my skeleton together?
Your skeleton makes up the hard, strong framework of your body. Your skeleton can move easily because it consists of many bones connected by flexible joints. Joints are kept together by elastic straps called ligaments and by a smooth, flexible tissue called cartilage, which covers and joins the ends of bones. Muscles are usually attached to bones by other tough elastic straps, or bands, called tendons. During movement, when muscles contract, it is the rope-like tendons that pull bones into their new positions.
Why do clothes need to be washed?
If you want to look clean and smell nice, your clothes must be washed frequently. Most clothing is made of tiny threads that are woven together. As you go about your day, dirt and odors get trapped in the weave of your clothes and can only be removed by washing. Clothes must be jiggled and swished around quite a bit in water, as is done in a washing machine, to best remove dirt and odors from their tiny hiding places. Detergent is added to water to help the process. It can break up oily dirt into smaller pieces that can be whisked away. And it can surround other dirt particles and pull them away from fabric. Washing machines are run by electric motors that turn large blades inside a big drum or tub that is filled with water. The blade turns back and forth, pushing soapy water and clothes around. A front-loading machine has no blades, but the drum turns and tumbles the clothes to get them clean. A washing machine automatically gets rid of dirty water and rinses the clean clothes before wringing water out of them, making them nearly dry. Before washing machines, people had to use muscle power and a great deal of time to loosen dirt from the weave of clothes. They did this by stamping on wet clothes with their feet, or beating them against rocks, or rubbing them on bumpy washboards to get them clean.
How many different kinds of elephants are there?
Here are two species of the elephant, the largest of the land animals. Both have descended from the ancient, extinct mammoth and mastodon. The African elephant is a good deal bigger than the Asian elephant. An African male can reach a height of 13 feet. 4 meters, at the shoulder and weigh more than 8 tons, 16,000 pounds, or 7,264 kilograms. In comparison, an Asian male can reach 10 feet, 3 meters. At the shoulder and weigh about 6 tons, 12,000 pounds, or 5,448 kilograms. Another difference between the two species is the size of their tusks. The elongated pair of upper teeth that the animals use for digging up roots and other food and for fighting. In African males they can measure more than 10 feet, 3 meters, and weigh up to 200 pounds. 91 kilograms, each, while in Asian males they can reach a length of 6 feet, 1.8 meters. African females have tusks, but Asian females do not. The ears of the two species differ also. African elephants have very large ears, which they flap to cool themselves. One ear can measure 42 inches, 107 centimeters, across. Asian elephants, on the other hand, have much smaller ears. Other differences between the species include trunk size and shape. African elephants have two long finger-like lips on the ends of their trunks while Asian elephants only have one. In addition, the trunks of Asian elephants are usually shorter and covered with smoother skin. The back of an Asian elephant is a bit humped, unlike the smooth back of its African cousin. Asian elephants are thought to have the better nature of the two species, being more trainable and even-tempered.
Which animal has the shortest life?
Many insects have very short lives, existing for only a few days. The mayfly has the shortest lifespan. In the adult stage, the mayfly often lives just a few hours long enough to mate and, for the females, to deposit their fertilized eggs. Male mayflies perform an acrobatic mating dance over water as the sun goes down. They are then joined in the dance by the females. Mayflies, also called fish flies, arrive in swarms in areas near bodies of fresh water. The pre-adult stages are aquatic, meaning they live in water. They coat streets and driveways and cling to screen doors and cars. While their fishy odor is unpleasant, the presence of mayflies indicates that the body of water is healthy.
How many different plants are there?
Scientists have found and described more than 275,000 kinds of plants. But they believe that many more are yet to be discovered. Plants vary greatly in size and appearance. Some, like single-celled algae, are so small that you can only see them with the help of a microscope. Others, like giant sequoia trees, are so big that you can't even see the tops of them. Plants are very different from one another because they have developed features over millions of years to help them live in the world's many different environments.
Why is the lion known as the king of beasts?
The lion is one of the largest members of the cat family. Found mostly in the open country of Central Africa. A male lion can reach up to 9 feet, 2.7 meters, long, including his tail, and weigh almost 400 pounds, 182 kilograms. The female is somewhat smaller. Powerfully built, lions can take down large, swift-running animals like zebra and antelope, on which they feed. Unique to the cat family, the male lion possesses a black or brown mane of long hair that grows on its neck, head, and shoulders. The mane can become quite enormous. The size and power of the male lion, his hunting habits, and his impressive mane have all likely contributed to his label as king of beasts. Lions also have commanding, thunderous roars, which can sometimes be heard more than a mile away. That, undoubtedly, have also contributed to their kingly reputation.
What is a best friend?
A best friend is a special pal who generally likes to do a lot of the same things you like. You tend to have more fun with your best friend than with other friends. And you can tell him or her more of your feelings, even secrets, because you trust that person more than anyone else. And your best friend feels the same way about you, sharing important ideas and feelings. It seems like your best friend understands you better than any other person you know. You care about each other a great deal. You share your good times and bad times with a best friend, and that person does the same with you.
What is throw up?
Throw up, or vomit, is partly digested food that has come back up forcefully through your mouth. Vomiting usually happens when the stomach is irritated by certain foods or by an infection caused by germs, bacteria and viruses. The quickest way for your body to get rid of the irritants or germs in your stomach is to vomit them out. Your brain tells the muscles in your stomach walls to spasm, contract abnormally. It also tells your diaphragm, the large sheet of muscles that separates your chest from your abdomen and is most responsible for your breathing, to press downward on your stomach. These activities combine to force the contents of your stomach up and out. Other conditions can cause nausea, that bad feeling in your stomach before you throw up, and bring on vomiting, too. Smelling a terrible odor, undergoing a frightening experience, or even, for some people, riding in a moving vehicle, called motion sickness, are some of the things that can send signals to the vomit center of the brain, which tells the stomach to empty itself to feel better.
Do all children go to school?
A lot of children around the world learn to read and write and do arithmetic in places that don't resemble the school that you go to. A temple, a tent, or a building on stilts may serve as a classroom. For some children living in very different places around the world, in poor places that have no money to build schools, children may learn their lessons outdoors. In isolated places like the Australian outback or Alaskan wilderness, where families live hundreds of miles apart and far from cities and towns, children may get their lessons from teachers over two-way radios or, in recent years, over the internet. And not all children go to school as we know it, learning lessons from a teacher. Reading, writing, and arithmetic may not be important skills for some children to learn. A child living in the bush in Africa, for instance, may have little use for mathematics, but will need to know how to identify animals' tracks and make bows and arrows for hunting. Parents or other adults will train the child until the skills are learned, acting as teachers. So while not all children learn what they need to in a typical classroom, most learn the skills that are important to their way of life. Children learn all sorts of things inside and outside classrooms.
Why does this happen, and more important, how can you make it go away so you can keep eating?
Everything you eat passes over the roof of your mouth, also called the palate. When something very cold touches the back of the palate, it affects a nerve center there that controls how much blood flows to your head. Depending on the circumstances, the nerve impulses can constrict or narrow blood vessels, or it can dilate or widen them. Scientists have not devoted much time to studying the cause of ice cream headaches, mostly because they pass quickly and are not serious. but doctors believe that the cold sensation on your palate may send a signal to the nerves there that your head needs warming up. Blood vessels open, allowing more blood, and more warmth, to flow through. This rapid dilation causes a buildup of fluid in your tissues that can't immediately drain. The extra fluid causes slight swelling, which results in the shooting pain you feel in the front of your head. Ice cream headaches rarely last more than a minute. But the pain can be intense enough to make you want to avoid them altogether. Try eating your ice cream or drinking your milkshake more slowly, and try not to let the cold stuff linger. On the roof of your mouth, hold the food more in the front or on the sides of your mouth before swallowing. Also, you can warm up your palate by placing your tongue there for a few seconds.
What is an ant?
An aunt is the sister of your mother or father. She can also be the woman who marries your mother or father's brother. If your mother and father have many brothers and sisters, you can have a lot of aunts. Sometimes a woman who is not related to you but who helps, advises, and encourages you as an aunt would, is affectionately referred to as your aunt.
Why should I wash my hands before I eat?
An important entranceway into your body, your mouth is connected to your digestive and respiratory systems. Germs from the outside world should be prevented as much as possible from getting inside these and other systems. Where they can cause problems, keeping your body from running as it should. When you touch things or people that are carrying germs, it is easy to transfer them to your mouth while eating. The problem can be easily solved, though, by washing your hands before you eat. About 2 minutes in warm, soapy water does the trick.
What plant has the biggest flower?
The largest flower in the world has a rather unpleasant name and an equally unpleasant scent. The stinking corpse lily, or Rafflesia arnoldi. This rare and endangered flower grows in the jungles of the Southeast Asian islands Borneo and Sumatra. The flowers are orange-brown in color with large white speckles. They can measure 3 feet across and weigh up to 25 pounds, 11 kilograms. Because the stinking corpse lily is a parasite plant, which means that it gets its nourishment from other plants, it has no stem or leaves. The flower seeds attach themselves to jungle vines and burrow into the vine's tissue, where they germinate and grow. Eventually a blossom pushes through the vine and grows to huge proportions.
Why are dams built?
Dams, which are structures that hold back water, have been built since ancient times. They are usually made of earth, rock, brick, or concrete, or a combination of these things. They are constructed to control the flow of water in a river, and they are built for a number of reasons. One reason is to prevent flooding. Heavy rains in high country may cause water levels in a river to rise. As the river flows downhill, it may overflow its banks, flooding communities located downstream. A dam can prevent this by stopping or slowing rushing water, allowing it to be released at a normal rate. Dams are also frequently used to store water for general use and farming. When a river's flow is restricted by a dam, water often spreads out behind the dam to form a lake or reservoir in the river valley. That water can then be used as needed, preventing water shortages and crop damage during long periods of dry weather. A great number of dams today are used to make electricity. Such hydroelectric dams are built very tall, to create a great difference in the height of the water level behind and in front of it. High water behind a dam passes through gates in the dam wall that allow it to fall to the river far below. As the water falls, it flows past huge blades called turbines. The turbines run generators that make electricity. One of the world's largest and most productive hydroelectric dams is the Hoover Dam, located on the Colorado River between Nevada and Arizona. Built in the 1930s, it is 726 feet, 221 meters, high and 1,244 feet, 379 meters, long. Its reservoir, Lake Mead, the world's largest, supplies water to several states, allowing huge regions of naturally dry terrain in Southern California, Arizona, and Mexico to flourish. Many modern dams are used for all three purposes: flood control, water storage, and hydroelectric power.
What are predators and prey?
A seal swims through cold ocean waters in search of a meal. He spots a nearby fish, swims to it, and eats it. In that situation, the seal is the predator, an animal that hunts down and eats another animal for food. The fish, on the other hand, is the prey, an animal that is hunted as a food source by another animal. In the ever-shifting world of the animal kingdom, however, an animal that is a predator in one situation could be the prey in another. The fish-eating seal, for example, might later find itself the intended prey of a hunting polar bear. While it may seem harsh and cruel, and it's always difficult to watch on television nature shows, animals hunting one another is a natural and necessary process. Animals don't hunt other animals for sport, they do so because they need to eat in order to survive. All living things depend on each other for survival. Many animals, herbivores, need to eat plants; other animals, carnivores, need to eat those plant-eating animals. And some animals, called omnivores, eat both plants and meat. The waste produced by animals, as well as the nutrients that result when an animal's body decomposes or breaks down, after death, enriches the soil, providing necessary ingredients for plants to thrive. An animal that primarily eats the leaves of a certain tree, or that requires that tree to make its home, would have trouble surviving if all of those trees were destroyed. And if that animal cannot survive, its predators cannot survive, and such struggles for survival echo all the way up the food chain.
Why do whales blow water up into the air?
A whale has one or two nostrils or blowholes located far back on the top of its head. A toothed whale has one, a baleen whale has two. Whales can only breathe through their blowholes, which are directly connected to their lungs. Their mouths lead only to the stomach. Blowholes have valves that close when a whale dives. A whale may dive as deep as 1 mile below the ocean surface and stay underwater for well over an hour. When a whale returns to the surface, it spouts, blowing the warm, moist air that has formed in its lungs out through its blowholes before it takes a fresh breath. The water that has collected on top of the blowholes gets blown into the air along with the whale's breath. Sometimes, the spouting of a large whale can be seen for miles. The type of whale can often be identified by the shape of its spout.
Do piranhas ever attack people?
Piranhas have a reputation for being vicious hunters with a strong attraction to the scent of blood. While they do have very sharp, pointy teeth and powerful jaws, and they sometimes hunt in large groups, piranhas rarely attack humans or any other large animals. Found mostly in the rivers and lakes of South America. Piranhas can grow to be 2 feet, 60 centimeters, long. Their preferred prey are fish that are smaller or only slightly larger than themselves. Groups of piranhas have been known to attack larger animals that have wandered into their territory, engaging in a feeding frenzy and rapidly removing hunks of the animal's flesh. But such incidents are quite rare, and many species of piranhas get most of their food from scavenging, meaning they feed on the remains of fish that are already dead.
Which snake is the biggest?
It depends on how the snake is measured. Many people believe that the giant, or green, anaconda is the largest overall, thickest and heaviest, while the reticulated python is the longest. Either way, these are both extremely large snakes. The anaconda, which lives near water in tropical regions of South America, commonly grows to be about 16 feet, 5 meters, long. But these snakes have been known to get as long as 30 feet, 9 meters, and they can weigh several hundred pounds. They capture prey by lying in the water at night, waiting for animals to come to the water's edge for a drink. Anacondas belong to the group of snakes known as constrictors, meaning they squeeze their prey to death rather than using venom. While they will sometimes capture animals as large as deer when in search of a meal. Anacondas are typically not very aggressive in the wild. Pythons are also non-venomous constrictors. The reticulated python, one of about 25 species of pythons, is thought to be the longest snake in the world. It often grows to be about 26 feet, 8 meters, long, though longer specimens have been recorded. The Guinness Book of World Records notes that the longest snake ever measured was a reticulated python that was around 33 feet, 10 meters, long. Pythons frequently live near cities and can often be found by riverbanks. They live in many regions of the world, including Africa, India, Southeastern Asia, and Australia. Unlike anacondas, pythons have a reputation for being vicious. Though they don't usually bother humans unless the humans are bothering them.
What causes goosebumps?
Goosebumps or goose pimples are little bumps on your skin that appear when you are cold or afraid. They are named that because they look like the bumpy flesh of a goose that's had its feathers plucked. When you are cold, the muscles in your skin raise the hairs on your body so that they can trap a thicker layer of air next to your skin, which may keep you a bit warmer. And, as with all muscular activity, this contraction of the skin muscles also produces heat. When you are afraid, the same process occurs, but for a different reason. At such times your body produces a chemical called adrenaline, which prepares you for emergency action. It makes your heart beat faster and your muscles tense, and that raises your hair. In animals with fur, raised hair makes them look bigger and may scare predators away. Scientists think that long ago, when people were covered with coats of heavy hair, goosebumps helped protect them in the same way from their predators.
What are pine cones?
The cones found on pines and other conifer plants are reproductive structures. Small male cones produce millions of grains of pollen that are carried by the wind to sticky female cones, where fertilization takes place and seeds begin to grow. Shortly after they release their pollen, male cones die, their work done. Soft and green at the time of fertilization, female cones gradually become larger, brown, and woody. This change makes room for and protects the growing seeds within its scales, which, unlike those of flowers don't have hard pod coverings of their own. Conifer seeds are described as naked. After a couple of years, when its seeds are mature, a female cone will open and release them into the wind. The female cone may then fall from the plant, its work also done.
What kind of government does the United States have?
While many people describe the form of government in the United States as a democracy, it is technically defined as a federal republic. Federal means that the individual states have some power but that a central national government has authority over them. Republics and democracies are, in fact, very similar, and in some cases, interchangeable. In a republic, the people have the power to elect leaders who govern according to a set of laws. In the United States, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights lay the groundwork for all laws that follow. That definition is very close to that of a kind of government called constitutional democracy. In that type of government, people exercise political power by electing leaders. These leaders, and the citizens of the country, are bound by a set of laws that guarantee certain freedoms, like the right to speak freely or practice any religion. While the U.S. government may be defined as a republic, many of its governmental processes are democratic in spirit.
Why do my ears pop when I'm traveling in an airplane?
Your eardrum is a thin, stretched membrane that separates your outer and middle ear. When sound waves hit it, it vibrates, just like the head of a drum. Your eardrum transfers sound vibrations to tiny bones in your middle ear, whose own vibrations increase the strength of the sound. The eustachian tube, which connects your middle ear with your throat, is responsible for keeping the air pressure in the back of your eardrum in the middle ear the same as it is in front of it. If air pressure is less behind your eardrums than in front, they are stretched backward and cannot do their job as well. Your ears feel blocked or stuffy and sometimes even hurt. This pressure change happens when you move quickly between high and low places, like in an airplane. Sometimes swallowing hard or yawning can stretch open the eustachian tube, forcing more air into your middle ear. Your ears will pop, then, which is a sign that air pressure is equalized in your ear and that your eardrums have snapped back into place. After your ears pop, you should be able to hear normally.
How is a tortoise different from a turtle?
Depending on where you live in the world, the words turtle and tortoise can be used to mean different things. Generally, in the United States, the word turtle is used to describe all members of the order Chelonia, the reptiles characterized by the shell that covers their bodies, those that live on land, in the sea, and in fresh water. Tortoise refers specifically to the group of turtles that live on land. In other words, all tortoises are turtles, but not all turtles are tortoises. Turtles look like ancient and primitive animals because that's what they are. They have survived relatively unchanged for hundreds of millions of years, thanks in large part to their hard, protective shells. Turtles can pull their arms, legs, tail, and head completely inside their shells, which in some species are strong enough to support a weight 200 times greater than their own. Not only have turtle species survived an incredibly long time, but individual turtles also have a longer lifespan than any other vertebrate, with some being known to live longer than 150 years. Turtles are legendary for their slow movement, particularly the lumbering tortoises that have been clocked at a pace of less than 1/3 of a mile, about half a kilometer, per hour. Turtles don't have teeth, but many types do have sharp, horny beaks that they can use to chew food. Most tortoises eat small, soft invertebrates like worms, slugs, and insects, while water-living turtles eat fish and even some small birds and mammals. Turtles come in a huge range of sizes. Smaller species weigh less than a pound, 454 grams, and reach only about 5 inches, 12.5 centimeters, in length. The largest tortoises have shells just under 3 feet. 1 meter, long, weighing more than 500 pounds, 225 kilograms. The Atlantic leatherback, the largest of the sea turtles, can reach 7 feet. 2.1 meters, in length and weigh around 1,200 pounds, 540 kilograms.
How did writing begin?
People communicated through speaking long before they began writing. Historians think that writing, a visible record of language, began around 4500 BC in Mesopotamia, located in the area that is now Iraq. People there, probably Sumerians, used wedges to make marks on wet slabs of clay that were later dried or baked to hardness, making a permanent record. Their system of writing, which consisted of symbols that represented words or syllables of words, is called cuneiform. At about the same time, the ancient Egyptians began to use a similar writing system called hieroglyphics. Pictures and symbols represented ideas and words or parts of words. Egyptians also wrote on clay tablets or carved hieroglyphics on the stone walls of monuments and tombs. They also painted them on paper-like materials made from river grasses, papyrus, or other plants. Few of these more delicate examples have survived. The Rosetta Stone, found in Egypt in 1799 and carved in 3 languages including hieroglyphics, gave scholars the key to understanding ancient Egypt's picture language. Later, the Maya people of Central America invented their own hieroglyphic writing system. None of these written picture languages are true alphabets, the symbols of which represent all the sounds of a language. The ancient Greeks created the first true alphabet around 1000 BC. The word alphabet comes from the names of the first 2 Greek letters, alpha and beta. All complex civilizations have some form of writing.
What is smog?
Smog, which originally was named by combining the words smoke and fog, is a type of air pollution. Smog was so named because it can form when moisture in the air combines with smoke particles. The smoke particles come from factories burning coal. This kind of smog has been a problem in London and other cities in Great Britain. Another kind of smog, called photochemical smog, is generally what people mean when they refer to this kind of pollution. Photochemical smog occurs when sunlight combines with the fumes from cars and factories in big cities. This combination produces a chemical reaction, resulting in gases called oxidants. When the weather conditions are right, very little wind, or a layer of warm air settling on top of a layer of cool air, smog can accumulate and hover in the air. The Los Angeles, California, area is especially famous for its high levels of smog. The conditions are ripe for a smog problem in Los Angeles. There are a lot of cars producing a great deal of exhaust. The city is located in a valley, where smog tends to accumulate. And it is surrounded by mountains, which means little wind gets in to break up the smog. The oxidants produced in photochemical smog pollute the air, damage plant life, and, in extreme cases, causes people to get sick. It has even been responsible for deaths. Over a 4-day period in 1952, the smog in London became so heavy and thick that people could barely see what was in front of them. By the end of that period, 4,000 people had died from lung ailments produced by the toxic chemicals. In the United States, in the town of Donora, Pennsylvania, 20 people died and thousands more became sick when smog levels reached a dangerous high. Laws attempting to reduce levels of air pollution have made some improvements. But the huge number of cars, factories, and power plants in industrialized nations like the United States continue to produce high levels of air pollution.
How do mirrors work?
A mirror can be any smooth, shiny surface that reflects, or bounces back, light. But most mirrors are made of sheets of glass, the backs of which have been coated with thin layers of reflective materials or metals, including silver. We see all things because light waves reflect off objects and into our eyes, creating images that are recognized by our brains. You can see yourself in a mirror because light rays reflected from your body bounce off the mirror's shiny surface and back into your eyes. But this double reflection creates an odd effect. Everything appears reversed. When you hold a book up to a mirror, for instance, the printing appears backward. In the same way, this double reflection of light allows you to see yourself in a glass window or on the surface of still water. but the reflection will not be as clear as one produced by a mirror. Because some of the light waves that are reflected from you will be absorbed by the glass or water instead of bouncing back. If the wind disturbs the surface of your watery mirror, the water will absorb even more light. And the smooth areas now small and scattered will produce parts of a reflection so broken up that it will be too unclear to recognize.
How do they know how to do that?
Scientists have studied migratory patterns of many different species. And they have developed theories as to how birds can find their way, but ultimately, they don't know for sure what techniques birds use. Birds might use the stars and the moon to guide their way, or they may have a sort of internal compass that helps them detect Earth's magnetic field, thereby showing them which way is north. Some birds may also be able to detect low-level sounds made by ocean waves. Sounds that can provide clues about direction. Perhaps many birds are capable of using more than one navigational technique. If not, the birds that use the stars to find their way would be lost on cloudy nights.
What is outer space?
Outer space refers to the area that exists beyond Earth's atmosphere. Our atmosphere is divided into several layers based on the temperatures found in each of those layers. The troposphere is the layer closest to Earth. It extends about 5 to 10 miles. 8 to 16 kilometers, above the planet's surface. Most of our weather, rain, snow, sleet comes from the troposphere. Temperatures in the troposphere can fall as low as -112 degrees Fahrenheit, -80 degrees Celsius. The next layer, called the stratosphere, stretches from 11 to 30 miles. 17 to 48 kilometers, above Earth's surface. The stratosphere contains the ozone layer, which protects all life on Earth from the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays. Temperatures gradually rise in the stratosphere, reaching a high of around 28 degrees Fahrenheit, -2 degrees Celsius. The stratosphere is followed by the mesosphere, which goes to about 50 miles, 80 kilometers, above Earth. Temperatures drop well down into the negatives in the mesosphere, but in the next layer, the thermosphere, the sun's radiation heats the air to around 1100 degrees Fahrenheit, 600 degrees Celsius. The thermosphere ends at about 250 to 300 miles, 400 to 480 kilometers, above Earth. The final layer is called the exosphere, and at that level, the atmosphere is so thin as to be virtually non-existent. There is no line drawn in space marking the end of Earth's atmosphere and the beginning of outer space. But many scientists agree that outer space begins somewhere around 600 miles, 960 kilometers, above Earth.
What are the continents?
The land masses on Earth are divided into 7 continents. They are, from largest to smallest, Asia, Africa, North America, South America, Europe, Antarctica, and Australia. Some people group Europe and Asia together into a single continent called Eurasia. At 17,226,000 square miles, 44,614,000 square kilometers. Asia covers about 30% of the world's area. Australia, at the other end of the size spectrum, is 3 million square miles, 8 million square kilometers. Australia is not only a continent, it's a country, too. And while it ranks as the smallest continent, Australia is one of the largest countries in the world.